Good morning. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today is Thursday, May the 28th, and I am Pastor Marianne Kellenbach, pastor at Living Faith Church, which is located in the city of Port St. Lucie in the community of Tradition, Florida. Oh my goodness, does it not feel like May has been perhaps one of the longest months, if not since probably mid-March has been one of the longest and hardest times certainly we have experienced here in the United States as it relates to this pandemic, and not knowing, being in fear, the death that is all around us, and us crying out, wondering, where are you, God? Where are you? How come you're not listening to me? How come you don't hear me? And I know we've had these conversations before, and we ask it, we're in the midst of the crisis. But it is upon reflection that we look back and we realize that God has been with us the entire time. And it recalls to mind a poem that I don't even remember the very first time I heard this poem, but I absolutely fell in love with it. And I think this poem is pretty familiar to you, and I want to read it to you. I'm not going to tell you the name of it, but I am going to read it to you. So you can hear it maybe for the first time, or perhaps with a fresh perspective on it based on this pandemic we're in the midst of. One night, I dreamed a dream as I was walking along the beach with my Lord. Across the dark sky flashed scenes from my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one to my Lord. After the last scene of my life flashed before me, I looked back at the footprints in the sand. I noticed that at many times along the path of my life, especially at the very lowest and saddest times, there was only one set of footprints. This really troubled me, so I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. I don't understand why when I needed you the most, you would leave me. The Lord whispered, my precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever during your trials and testings. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. Yes, you've guessed it. Footprints in the sand to help us remember this promise that has been given to us. Sometimes folks might wear a little footprint chain or pin. And sometimes when that's worn, that's just a way of letting other people know what we're going through, that there is a time in which we're grieving, and we want to make others aware of that. But we also remember that we're being carried during that time. We hear in Matthew's gospel, the very last verse of this gospel. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. What a beautiful promise. The very last verse of the good news. And it is the good news. And remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. So let's dissect this poem, as they say. What are some of the things that calls to you? One of the things I like is I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and one belonging to my Lord. And so the footprints doesn't tell us where those footprints were, right? It doesn't say if the footprints were side by side, two sets of footprints. It doesn't say if one set was in front or one set was behind. It doesn't say if one was like ahead, back, and then how do you interpret that? Who was standing where? Side by side, you can sort of figure out, okay, it's the Lord standing next to the writer, or I'll say to me. But if it's the one in front of the other, who's ahead? Is that the Lord and I'm following? Or is that me and the Lord is behind me to catch me in the event that I fall? Whenever we say the Lord be with you, we say, may the Lord be with you, by your side, in front of you, to guide you, behind you to catch you if you fall, above you, below you, all around you. It also doesn't say what size those footprints were. Notice that? They were just footprints. It leaves it up to the person who wants to draw those to determine what size are those footprints. It then goes on to say, I noticed that many times along the path of my life, especially at the lowest and saddest times, there were only one set of footprints. One set of footprints at the time that I was the lowest and I was the saddest. This really troubled me. So I asked the Lord about it. Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. Notice a couple of things that's going on here. First, it says, you said once I decided to follow you. We don't get to decide if we're going to follow God. God is the one who opens up through sending the Holy Spirit, right? Our hearts that we begin to comprehend and to understand, and we can't help but follow. It's not a head decision. I know I say this all the time, but it isn't a head decision, because everything that is logical in this world would say following Jesus is totally illogical. Unless, of course, you think that by following, which is what this author is actually almost saying without saying, if you think that when you follow Jesus, that means nothing bad is going to happen in your life, my goodness, far from it. Far from it. Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. This is not going to be easy at all. You are going to be bucking the green, as they say, every single day. Because what this world tells you is good and glorious is not what's good and glorious in God's kingdom. It's very different. But then notice this. Notice the conclusion that is drawn. And if we ended it here and did not hear God's response in the poem, then we would think along the same lines that this author thought. But I noticed that during the saddest and most troublesome times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. And here's the conclusion, not a question. I don't understand why, when I needed you the most, you would leave me. It's not a question. The question wasn't, where are you? Why are you not here? The question is not even a question. Why did you leave me? A forlorn, is that what we say? Conclusion drawn that the Lord left you. The Lord didn't leave you. The Lord responds, and this is the beautiful response. My precious child, I love you and will never leave you. Never, ever, during your trials and testings. My goodness, I almost hear the Lord saying, are you kidding me? If ever I was going to leave you, it would have been when I was on the cross. But no, this is how much I love you. This is how much I have done what the Father has asked me to do. For your sake, I have done this, for your freedom, for your reconciliation, for your sanctification, being made holy by the Holy Spirit. Never, I know exactly what you're going through, and I would never, ever abandon you. When you saw only one set of footprints, it was then that I was carrying you. I was carrying you because you were unable to move forward on your own. Do you even remember those times? I love this. Because this isn't the Lord that says, follow me and everything's going to be great. This is the Lord that says, follow me. I will be with you to the end of time, forever and ever and ever. And the end of time isn't time here on earth. It is forever. I will always be with you, most especially during those times of trial. I know exactly what you have gone through. I have gone through the same exact thing. Your God, me, God, became human for your sake, and I know what it feels like to be you. We don't know what it feels like to be God, but God knows what it feels like to be us. So in those times in your life, when you feel as if you've been abandoned by God, listen to God's voice whispering, no, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Feel my presence. I am with you, most certainly during this time of uncertainty. Of that, you can be certain. Amen.